Hour number two, welcome back in. It's the Extra Points out ahead with you on this Wednesday morning. Cap and Dave producing on the other side of the glass. Want to let you know, coming up Friday, of course, baseball getting back in action as the Gamecocks take on Miami of Ohio for a 3-game set to start the season. Also, we'll see the Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union Grand Slam giveaway starting this upcoming Friday. Stay tuned for more details on that. But if you listen during football season, think about it like the Loyola Special Teams Touchdown Contest, where you have the opportunity to win some money every time the Gamecocks hit a Grand Slam. So, again, all that gets started up on Friday. Football, obviously, always at the forefront of our minds, even as we encounter the long off season that is the next, 6 months before we get football back officially in August. Thankfully, the calendar works out that way this year, where you have football at the end of August instead of having to wait that extra week until the beginning of September. J.D. Pickell, who is a great insider for On3, if you haven't checked out any of his stuff or listened to his podcast, highly recommend it. Dude knows his stuff on top of recruiting and everything else going on in the world of college football. He was on the Feinbaum show yesterday, and I thought he had some interesting comments when talking about the SEC in general and coaches that are going into this fall in uncomfortable situations. And I thought it was interesting that he kind of grouped Coach Beamer together with Billy Napier. This will be cut number 14 here, Dave. Here's what Pickell had to say yesterday on the Feinbaum show.
Yeah, I mean, I think the name that keeps coming up in a lot of just college football public circles is what's going to happen at Florida with Billy Napier. And Billy Napier is someone I'm a huge fan of. I think he's done a really good job with what he inherited. Now, it hasn't been the job they wanted to see done on the field, but just not just from a what they haven't done the last couple of years perspective at Florida and Gainesville. I think just the schedule they have here to finish, like November 2nd to November 30th for them, is absolutely brutal. You start with Georgia, and then you got Florida State at the end of that thing. I mean, it's a very, very difficult schedule and what feels like a really high-stakes year for Billy Napier and company. So I think that's one that you got to look at. Another guy that I'm a huge fan of, Shane Beamer at South Carolina. Wasn't the year they wanted to have last year. I'd probably pump the brakes a little bit more on making a definitive statement on Shane Beamer and his future in Columbia. I think they overachieved the past 2 years. So to have one down year this past year, I think, you kind of wait and see and you don't get overreactionary. But those are the two that I'm curious to see how they respond in 2024.
And you hear that clip there. He's not necessarily saying that Beamer's on the same type of hot seat that Napier is on going into this year. And trust me, I'll get to the details of Napier in a moment. I'd even venture to say that Beamer's not really on any kind of hot seat going into this year. Now, when you look at a lot of programs around the country, year number 4 is that make or break year for so many coaches. Like, well, if they don't do X amount in year number 4, then that's it. They're going to get canned and they're going to be looking for a new head coach at whatever school that ends up being. I don't think that's the case for Shane Beamer. Now, if he goes out there and they go 0-12 this year, then okay, that's a conversation worth having. I don't think that is going to happen. So I think Beamer's job is safe for another couple of years because of what Pickell said there, that they have overachieved early on in his tenure here at South Carolina. And we talk about that so much with the order of how things happened with the respective 3 seasons that they've had. Year number 1, where you were expected to win 2 games. You go out there and you go 6-6, make a bowl game and win that as well. So 7 wins in year number 1, that is far exceeding expectations. Year number 2, where things were looking pretty bleak, looked like you were heading for another 6-6. Oh, you go and knock off 2 teams that were destined for the college football playoff in back-to-back weeks to close out the season and get to a pretty decent bowl game in the Gator Bowl. And despite the fact that you were missing half your roster, played a very competitive game against Notre Dame, overachieving once again. This past year was a little bit of a step back, going 5-7, missing out on a bowl game. You look at that Florida game where you kind of let it slip through your fingers there at the end, wondering what could have been. And obviously, if you can generate a little bit more offensively against Clemson, maybe you win that game as well. So this year was definitely a step back. But when you think about the 3-year scope as a whole, those records in a different order would have made a lot more sense. Where you come in, you're number 1, hey, 5-7, got close to a bowl game, that's cool. You're number 2, 7-6, hey, made a bowl game and won it. All right, moving in the right direction. Then you're number 3, 8 wins, and you knock off 2 top 10 teams in consecutive weeks. We're feeling great about that. But it's the fact that you did it out of order that does bring people to say, ooh, I don't know about Shane Beamer there at South Carolina. But again, I think everything's fine. I don't think anybody's putting him on the hot seat going into this season. And I also, accompany that or contribute that to the fact that I think you have to look at what the expectations are at a place like South Carolina to a place like Florida. And I'm not justifying what Florida fans have as expectations. I'm just saying this is what they think of whenever they hire a new head coach. It's been 15 years since Urban Meyer won that last national championship, but anytime Florida brings in a new coach, the expectation is we got to be in the national conversation for championships within the next 2 to 3 years. And if you're not, then sorry, get out of here. We'll get somebody else. It's not the same at South Carolina. Now, do we want to see Shane Beamer take this program to great heights and be in contention for SEC championships and national championships on a year in, year out basis, college football playoff appearances? Absolutely. That is what we were all hoping for. That's what we all want to see. And there's no reason that they can't get there. But when you think about the history of this program, who, again, from prior to 20 years ago, was struggling to even make it to bowl games. So the expectations that the fans and this program has coming in isn't the same that you have down there at Florida. And that's not a knock on it. That's just looking at South Carolina through a historical lens, where you can say, okay, well, if you can have a guy that can come in here, win around 8-9 games a year on average, that's sustainable. And when you think about the new era of college football, where being 9-3 in the SEC could realistically get you in the college football playoff, that's even better. And I think Beamer has the capability of doing that. Again, this past year was a step back, a lot of issues with injuries and stuff like that. That certainly hurt things, but again, I don't see him on any kind of hot seat. I don't see him going anywhere anytime soon, nor should you. And I think he's very well liked by the fan base, very well liked by people within the Athletic Association, Ray Tanner, all that kind of stuff, which is important. And he's very personable, and he gets it. He very much fits with what the nature of South Carolina athletics is. And, where maybe Will Muschamp was a little bit of a square peg in a round hole type of situation, like Beamer does seem to kind of be that perfect fit. And while everybody focuses on the record, you do have to look at what Beamer's done from a recruiting standpoint as well. Pulling in 5 stars, Dylan Stewart, Nick Harbor, having a great portal class. Now, yes, all those guys still have to go out there and prove on the field that they are worth the hype. But the more you continue to recruit better, the more you continue to pull in good guys out of the transfer portal, the more successful you're theoretically going to be when you think about how everything usually bounces out. Now, yes, are all those high-level talents going to pan out to you? I hope them to. No. But the more of those guys you bring in, the better chance of success overall that you end up having. So, again, I don't think Beamer's in any kind of trouble going into this year. And I think if you're able to bounce back and get into, a bowl game this upcoming year, which you have a daunting schedule. Well, we talked about it. Getting 6 wins is not going to be easy. But again, a lot of turnover on this team, a lot of new faces and new places across this entire roster. We don't know what this team's going to be like. So you talk about getting back to a bowl game and maybe having some signature wins this year. I think Beamer's safe for another several years, and I don't think we're talking about him on the hot seat anytime soon. That's not the same case with Napier down in Florida. If they don't improve in 2025, he will be gone. Again, very short leash given to head coaches down there in Gainesville. I mentioned Urban Meyer winning that last championship back in 2008. Since then, when you look at Will Muschamp, Jim McElwain, Dan Mullen, and now Billy Napier, all those guys were not given a long time to turn things around or get the program where it needed to be. And I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I'm just saying that's how it ended up being. And case in point, when you look at McElwain, who took Florida to 2 straight SEC championship games in 2015 and 2016. Dan Mullen, who took them to their last SEC championship game in 2020. Both of those coaches were fired less than a calendar year after the SEC championship game appearance. That is the desire for immediate success that they have down there at Florida that, that's lofty expectations, and not every coach can live up to that. And again, we talk about Billy Napier, who in year number 2 misses a bowl game, and that team looked completely inept away from home outside of the game against South Carolina. Unfortunately, that fan base, I think a lot of people in the fan base had enough coming away from this year. Now he's going to get another year, and he saved face a little bit with the early signing day not turning into a total disaster, though it looked like it was trending in that direction. But this is a make it or break it year for Billy Napier. And we've talked plenty about that ungodly schedule they have, especially the month of November. Georgia, at Texas, LSU, Ole Miss, at Florida State. Like, there may not be a win in that month at all. In fact, I don't expect there to be one. Not to mention the fact you got to take on Miami. We don't know what A&M's going to be. Got to go to Tennessee. Got to go to Kentucky. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be an easy path at all. And if I was a betting person, and I say this all the time, I'm not. I would not bet on Billy Napier being the head coach of Florida in 2025, just because I don't see that path to success for this team. You know what? Even getting to a bowl game, as daunting as this schedule is, I don't even know if that's enough. Because I think the expectation, right or not, for the people down there in Florida is we need to be in the same conversation with the Georgias, the Alabamas, the Tennessees, all that kind of stuff. Even though they haven't been for, consistently at least, for a while. And unfortunately, I think that's going to be detrimental to Billy Napier in year number 3. Perhaps the hottest seat, though, it's got to be Sam Pittman, right? I mean, I think we were all pleasantly shocked with the fact that he got an extra year to begin with, because it looked like after this past season being a disaster, couldn't generate anything on offense, surely they were going to go another direction. But he's liked by his players. They gave him an extra year. Players were excited about it. He brings him by Petrino to as a last-ditch effort with that offense. We'll see what happens, but old Uncle Sam, he's walking on very thin ice. If they get off to a bad start this season, I don't think he even makes it to halfway. They gave him the grace of granting him one more year. We'll see what he does with that. But potential for a couple of significant jobs in the SEC to be open in 2025 if things don't go the way that Billy Napier and Sam Pittman obviously want them to go. So many new things about the college football world going into 2024 and beyond, quite frankly. One thing that isn't going to be changing anytime soon, though, is where you watch college football, particularly when it comes to deciding a national champion. We'll dive into that coming up. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head along with you on your Wednesday morning. Sorry about that. Here on The Game. Welcome back in. Extra Point. Tyler Head with you on your Wednesday morning. Cap and Dave producing on the other side of the glass. As always, you can watch us on the Game TV, sponsored by Shepherd's Glass, youtube.com. Search the Game TV, subscribe to us as well. Hit the bell notification so you can be notified anytime we are uploading or streaming live as well. And as always, you can listen to us on the 107.5 The Game app too. Just go to your app store, give us a download, take us wherever you go, across the state, across the country, across the world. The Game can be with you wherever you are. College football getting set for the 12-team playoff to make its debut in 2024. Big question mark this offseason was the future of the 12-team playoff as far as a TV network was concerned. And yesterday it was official, ESPN extending their deal with the college football playoff to show the games through the 2031-2032 season, a 6-year extension worth $7.8 billion. And seeing this, my question is, were you expecting anybody else? There were speculation and rumors for a while that the college football playoff was kind of seeking a Super Bowl-ish type of model with their games, where, okay, maybe you rotate it between ESPN and Fox and CBS, over a 3 to 4 year period or something like that. ESPN is the dominant force in the world of college football. Everything now, with the exception of certain Big Ten games, I think that's it. I think the Big Ten now, because the Big 12 has its own new deal with ESPN, I'm pretty sure the Big Ten is the only power conference, at least, that is going to be seen on anything other than ESPN, because now SEC is exclusively going to be on ESPN. The Big Ten has jumped over to CBS, kind of taking the place of where the SEC was, which, by the way, I can't wait for a 3:30 game between, Iowa and Rutgers. Yeah, that's definitely going to hit the same as, Florida and LSU at 3:30 or something like that. But, ESPN has this monopoly on college football. ESPN is one of the big reasons why the college football playoff exists in the first place. And you knew they were going to come to some kind of agreement. Obviously had to nail down the numbers there, but lucrative deal extended through the 2031-2032 season. Also, this does incorporate all the rounds of the college football playoff. That was another question of okay, is it going to be ESPN for the championship games, the quarterfinals, or is the first round games going to go to Fox or something like that? It's all encompassed, all going to be on the ESPN family of networks. Again, no surprise here, as you would expect. The thing that's interesting about the college football playoff, as again, we're 6 months away from the season starting, we still don't know the exact format. Now, there is a vote coming up on Tuesday next week. They will finally vote on the 10 FBS commissioners, as well as Jack Swarbrick, who's the athletic director at Notre Dame, because they're factored in this as well. They will vote on what the format's going to be for the college football playoff for the next 2 seasons, and I'll get to that a little bit more in a moment. Because, of course, it seemed like a foregone conclusion. Hey, you're going to have the six locked-in spots with the 5 Power 5 champions and 1 highest-ranked Group 5 teams, and then at large for the other 6 spots. Well, then you had an entire conference implode on itself in the Pac-12, and now it's like, okay, well, now what do you do? And the prevailing thought and the, what we expect to happen on Tuesday is the 5 and 7 model to officially get approved, where it's literally what it sounds like, where you knock off one conference, where now you have the 4 Power 5 power champions locked in, and then the 1 Group of 5 champion, and then 7 at-large spots. That's all fine and dandy for the next 2 years. Again, that's the agreement they're most likely going to be able to come to after this vote, and that's what we'll do in 24 and 25. Past that, though, still very much up in the air. And when you look at what the SEC and the Big Ten did almost 2 weeks ago now with this collaboration, not going to call it an alliance, that's the wrong phrase to use there, this collaboration between the 2 biggest conferences in college football, in college sports in general, that's where things get a little bit murky. Because I think those 2 coming together saying, hey, let's work together and try and help each other out. I don't think there's any way either one of those conferences, Tony Petitti or Greg Sankey, vote for any kind of automatic qualifiers in the college football playoff after 2025 because it benefits those two conferences more to not do that. So when you think about this model, regardless, now, again, we think about like the SEC champion, the Big Ten champion, they're always somewhere up there in the top five. They're always, one of the best teams in the entire country. That's not always the case when we talk about the Big 12, the ACC, and stuff like that. So when you talk about having automatic qualifiers in a college football playoff, well, the Big 12 champion might be ranked number 14th. But with the AQ model, they're going to get in the top four and have a first-round bye. But maybe not necessarily be one of the best 12 teams in the country. And, again, let's say that in that scenario, LSU is number 12. So you take an SEC team that is, in the eyes of the committee, one of the best 12 teams in the country, and you move them out to let in this conference champion in Arizona that's outside of the top 12. I don't see that format sticking past 2025 because I think the SEC and the Big Ten look at this and say, hey, if we can get this to where it's all at-large bids, where literally they are just going to take number 1 through number 12 like they did for number 1 through number 4 for the past 10 years, say, okay, there's your playoff, and whoever the top 4 seeds in would get buys at that point in time. I think they're going to push for a model like that because especially now that both those conferences have grown with the addition of Texas and Oklahoma to the SEC, with the addition of the LA schools as well as Oregon and Washington, all 4 very good programs going to the Big Ten, it's not unrealistic to think that 10 of those spots could be between those two conferences. And then, okay, the ACC champion was 11 and maybe a group of 5 team slides in at number 12 or Big 12 champion slides in at number 12 or whatever it may be. But, like, you're most likely going to have the majority of your top teams come from the 2 biggest conferences in the SEC and the Big Ten. And that's why this collaboration makes sense. Because instead of working against each other, like Kevin Warren was trying to do when he was the commissioner of the Big Ten, forming the alliance with the ACC and the Pac-12 that ended up failing miserably, I think Petitti and Sankey looked at each other as like, hey, we're on similar footing here. Why don't we put our heads together and see what we can do to benefit us both? Now, does that eventually turn into those two conferences breaking away from the NCAA and forming their own NFL minor league? Maybe. Now, Sankey was quick to say, that's not what we're doing right now. Yeah, right now. But talk to me another 3 to 4 years if things continue trending the way they are in college football and see if you're maybe still up on the idea, or maybe see if maybe you're still down on the idea of not wanting to break off. It's laying the foundation. And again, when you look at the power that these two conferences yield, especially if they get a format like a completely at-large format where they're dominating the numbers in the college football playoff, then who knows what that could lead to? And who knows what kind of frustrations that leads to with the ACC and the Big 12? Could they band together and form some kind of collaboration? Sure. I don't think it's going to go anywhere because they just don't yield the same financial power that the SEC and the Big Ten do. The ACC, again, shooting themselves in the foot with that, ironclad grant of rights that runs through 2036 that everybody's trying to get out of and complaining about, but I don't see them going anywhere anytime soon. And as the years go by, those two conferences, the SEC and the Big Ten, are going to get further and further away from what the ACC and the Big 12 are. And you best believe that if the SEC says, yeah, we'll take some more schools, there's going to be teams from both those conferences lining up to join them. Same thing with the Big Ten. If they decide to expand any more past 18, because that's a big number. But we're on the precipice of a lot of change in the world of college football. But at least for the next 8 years, we know the channel we'll be watching the college football playoff games on. We just don't quite know what the format of that is going to look like just yet. Speaking of changes, the NCAA tournament changes on the horizon. How do you feel about that? We'll dive into what the possibilities of that could be coming up. It is the Extra Point. Tyler along with you here on the Game. The 107.5 The Game app and streaming as always on the Game TV, sponsored by Shepherd's Glass. Welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head along with you on your Wednesday morning. Want to remind you once again, baseball season starting up on Friday as the Gamecocks take on Miami of Ohio out at Founders Park. Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union Grand Slam giveaway also starts this weekend, where, again, if you were tuned in for football season, we had our Lori Lisa Special Teams Touchdown Contest where you had $100 for every game that if South Carolina did not score a Special Teams touchdown, that money rolled over to the following game, so on and so forth, until we finally got that Special Teams touchdown against Vanderbilt. And somebody won, I believe, $1,000, $1,100 at that point in time, whatever it was. So similar thing here with the Grand Slam Challenge for Palmetto Citizens for baseball. I believe it's $25 that'll continue, that will roll over game to game to game until the Gamecocks are able to hit a Grand Slam. So hopefully that happens at some point this season, and if it happens later on in the year, that'll be a nice little pot of money that somebody will be able to win. Again, thanks to our friends at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union. As we get closer to the month of March, we obviously are getting very excited for March Madness. Even more excited knowing that South Carolina is going to be part of it this year, which just makes everything a whole lot more fun, because that just makes watching college basketball more relevant across the board in the minds of Gamecock fans, because watching other games affects you now. And watching other teams in the SEC and other teams around the nation, because you're looking like, okay, well, you know, Lenardi thinks we're going to be here, thinks we're going to be playing this team, or we're going to be in this regional, and, you know, matching up against with this team potentially and all that kind of stuff. So it makes it very exciting. And there is, despite the fact that the March Madness field is 68 teams, there's still an exclusivity to it. Because when you have 362 teams across all of Division I college basketball that have opportunities to make the NCAA tournament, and I think most people would agree that 64, 68, when you count the play-in teams, a 68-team tournament is a good sweet spot that I don't think anybody's going to complain about. It gives you enough of you have the powers, you have the AQs, all that kind of stuff. You have the mix of the mid-majors that get in one big leagues and one big leagues and everything. I don't think anybody complains about it. I think most people would argue that we're in a good spot as of right now. However, it seems that changes might be on the horizon. Yesterday, Ross Dellinger of Yahoo Sports published an article in which he mentioned at the end of January, the commissioners of the power conferences, so your normal Power Five, as well as the Big East in basketball, started an open dialogue with Charlie Baker, the new president of the NCAA, about potential changes coming to the NCAA tournament in years to come when talking about expansion. Why would they do that? More money, of course. And when you think about the NCAA tournament, it is the main cash cow of the NCAA. They don't have the college football playoff. They don't have the highest, revenue-generating championship in college sports. The NCAA tournament's their baby. It's what makes them the most money, and they want to cling on to it as hard as they can, especially with all these talks of different conferences and stuff, maybe one day trying to break away and do their own thing. They want to make sure that everybody's happy with the NCAA tournament, and expansion might be the reason for that. Does that mean if they expand, hey, maybe if they go to 90 teams, that mean we're going to get more of these small mid-major teams, these Cinderellas, maybe a team that won the regular season in one of these one bid leagues and, you know, came up short in the conference championship game or something like that? No. No more Cinderellas. It's going to be more about power leagues getting their bottom tier teams or mid to bottom tier teams in the dance instead. And there's one specific piece from this article that I think perfectly outlines where this is going to go. Dellinger says, however, discussions between the commissioners and the NCAA go beyond the topic of revenue and also include the growing wish for more access in the form of at-large spots. In the meeting with Baker, commissioners were transparent about their desire for more access in a 68-team field that includes 32 automatic qualifying spots, 27 of which go to non-power leagues. So when we talk about expanding to maybe 90, that's the number that gets thrown out there a lot, maybe 96, whatever it may be. Instead of saying, okay, well, now let's take maybe 3 teams from the Patriot League that have really good records or something like that. No. You're going to take a Missouri or a Clemson a season ago, teams that, maybe were just below the bar of entry into the field of 68, that are now going to get their opportunity to be in the bigger dance, I guess is the best way to put it. And you look at it, power leagues last year, Dellinger pulled this number, made up about 70% of the incentive payouts for winning games in the NCAA tournament. Those power conferences want that to be at 100% if they could, or at least as close to 100% as they could. So sorry to little guys, but this is a business at the end of the day. And the SEC, the Big Ten, the Big 12, the ACC, the Big East, they're all in this to generate as much revenue as they can. And it goes back to a larger conversation that we can talk about in a lot of different ways. This perception that all 362 teams in Division I for basketball and all 133 teams in Division I FBS for football are all playing for the same championship, because they're not. Now, yes, the NCAA tournament does open up the possibility of Cinderellas making a run. Now, none of those Cinderellas have won national championships. Now, okay, and I consider true Cinderellas are teams from these one-bid leagues. So you can have a team that maybe didn't have a great year in the Big Ten go deep, or even, South Carolina or something like that. If they were to have a mediocre year and go on a run in the NCAA tournament, that's not necessarily a Cinderella. That's just a power league school that exceeded expectations in the tournament. When you talk about Cinderellas, it's these small little schools, the St. Peters of the world, the Wichita States years and years ago that make these deep runs into the NCAA tournament. But again, and they can get to the Final Four, but getting the national championship, winning the national championship is often a different story. And, more often than not, it's going to be your usual suspects, your usual power teams getting to the Elite Eight, getting to the Final Four and all that kind of stuff. So, again, while that perception is always in the mind of these smaller schools, these mid-majors and stuff like that, like, hey, we can technically still win the national championship if we do X, Y, and Z, the realistic possibility of that happening is pretty slim to none for the most part. And I think it's always going to be that way. Now, do you ever get to the point where you give the mid-majors their own NCAA tournament? Probably not, because the being a part of the big dance does help fund a lot of these athletic programs for ones that can get in at a consistent clip and even win some games as well. So I don't think that ever goes away, but especially as we talk about expanding the NCAA tournament field, where now you're talking about, let's say you are what, has traditionally been a number 16 seed or number 14 seed or something like that. I don't even know what the seeding would be like with an expanded tournament to 96 or whatever it may be. Your path to getting even deeper into the NCAA tournament just got a whole lot harder, which to me even lessens the possibility of one of those teams coming up and winning a national championship or being in contention for that, deeper into the tournament. So again, if the NCAA tournament expands, it's all about money, as everything is in the world of college sports and sports in general. It's going to benefit the biggest conferences and, hurt the smaller ones. They'll still get their chance. They'll still, hey, you won your conference championship game. You're still going to get in the dance, but now your path to making any kind of run just got all that more daunting. But it's coming, whether we like it or not. And, at the end of the day, when you tell us, hey, there's going to be more college basketball to watch in the tournament, we're still going to watch. And that's just us as addicted sports fans. But that's just what I see on the horizon, at least. Come back, wrap up today's edition of The Extra Point. It's coming up next. Tyler Head along with you, Captain Dave, producing on the other side of the glass here on The Game. Welcome back in. It's Extra Point. Tyler Head along with you. Coming up in just a couple minutes, Wes and Chris will jump in with me for the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Talk a little bit of Gamecock baseball right off the jump. Stuart Lake, the new voice of the Gamecocks, one of the new voices of the Gamecocks, going to be joining us right at the top of the hour as we get set for baseball coming up this weekend against Miami of Ohio. Speaking of which, coming up on Friday, going to have a special Gamecocks baseball opening day halftime show live from the Village Idiot on Whaley from noon until 3:45. Myself, Terry Ford, Jay Phillips also going to hang out for a couple of hours as well. So come by and see us as we get you set for all things Gamecock baseball. Today is, of course, Valentine's Day. Dave, I'll bring you in for this. Obviously, different generations do things different ways. When you were a kid in like elementary school, did y'all do the thing where like you had to? Everybody passed out Valentines to everyone in the classroom? Was it just like, oh, if you wanted to give someone a Valentine, you did that yourself? Or how was it done back in your day?
Well, they used to put little heart-shaped things up around the classroom with people's names on them, and you'd put Valentines in them, and with extra ones and the ones you liked.
So you did give them to everybody.
Yeah, everybody got one.
Okay,
including guys, which I don't know, it's kind of stupid, but
yeah. I think that's one of those like to be inclusive and let everybody have something so nobody feels left out, I guess, kind of thing. But it is kind of funny to look back in hindsight, which I guess you're 8 years old or whatever. You don't know about love and relationships. You're like, hey, I got a sucker with this stupid little card that Susie's handing out or whatever it may be.
But I did give Melissa Griffin and Sharon Crisp about 40 each,
How'd that go? That work out?
Sharon did marry a guy named Adair, but wasn't me.
Close. Hey. In the ballpark. Hey, you know what? You miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
That's true.
It's funny, like you do that in elementary school where it's like, okay, well, everybody has to go in there and pass out all these Valentine stuff like that. I remember getting to middle school, and that wasn't a thing anymore, but they did have, like, the Valentine Grams, where you could send, like, it was like a paper heart with, like, a lollipop to, like, somebody you had a crush on or whatever it may be, or a secret admirer, that kind of thing. And, like, you go from getting, 20 Valentines every single year in elementary school to getting none in middle school. And like, there was always that hope and optimism that like, ooh, like maybe the girl that I like is going to send me one, like, or maybe I'll send her one, but you always get like too afraid to do it because you feel like she's going to end up finding out. And then you just go through years of Valentine's Day with nothing happening.
I once gave a girl, I think it was in high school. I gave her a bouquet of flowers, but I didn't put my name on it.
Okay.
For some reason, frightened, scared, I don't know. And so some other guy claimed it.
That is the dangerous thing about anonymous gifts.
Yes.
Is there's always that one person. So that was me, and there's like not a way to like prove it.
Yeah.
And then the worst part, if you do something like that, and she's excited that he's the one that came forward and said, "Well, I'm the one that did it," because if you're like, "Well, that was actually me," you just kind of get the, "Oh, thanks, I guess."
Sure.
Because she wanted it to be the other guy.
Yeah.
So word to the wise, kids. If you're going to be a secret admirer,
go ahead. Go for it. Put your name on it.
Go for it, but also keep the receipt.
Yeah, keep the receipt.
I don't know if, your high school, whatever teacher is selling roses for you to send out anonymously is printing up receipts, but maybe have them write one out so you can prove to your crush or whatever it may be that, hey, I'm the one that bought you this, not Joe Schmo over there taking credit.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
hey, there's a business idea, selling roses at schools. Well, I guess
I think
you really couldn't do that.
Well,
probably, but
I feel like there's always one teacher that does something like that. Like I think that already is already happening in a lot of schools around the country. I will say this, similarly to like Halloween, Valentine's Day is a really good holiday the day after because you can get half-price candy.
That's true.
I'm a big candy, like Reese Hearts.
Oh, yeah.
Half price tomorrow? Heck yeah. I'm all over that. Like any holiday involving candy, I'm down with. Absolutely, yeah. Heading to Dollar General tomorrow. That's right, exactly. They've been selling Valentine's candy for the past 8 months. Let's be honest here. They successfully have every holiday candy or decoration ready to go at all times. Like and that's another thing real quick before we get out of here. It bothers me when stores get too many holidays ahead. Like I was at Walmart the other day and they had Easter stuff out. And I'm like, let's get through Valentine's, then we can get to Easter. It's like when people put up their Christmas trees before Thanksgiving. Yeah. It's like, no. Eat Thanksgiving first and then put up your Christmas tree. Let's not cross our holidays. One holiday at a time, folks. It's not that hard.
That's true.
Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. I'll get off my soapbox now. That'll do it for today's edition of The Extra Point. Coming up next, it is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Going to be talking to Stuart Lake, new voice of Gamecocks baseball, right off the jump at the 11 o'clock, start of the 11 o'clock hour right here on The Game.